Once upon a time, in a valley forgotten by time, there was a village nestled at the edge of an ancient forest. This was no ordinary forest, it was whispered to be the home of spirits, an enchanted place where reality blurred with myth. In this hidden world lived a serpent spirit, a being of great magic and even greater mystery. And it is here that our story begins, a tale of love, longing, and the deep magic that binds all things. In this village lived a young girl named Mayari. She was known throughout the village for her beauty, but even more for her gentle heart. Her laughter brought smiles to those around her, and her kindness to the elderly and the young was unparalleled. Mayari was the pride of her parents, who were humble farmers, and her presence seemed to bring warmth even to the coldest days of the year. Every day, Mayari worked in the fields, helping her parents with the crops. She tilled the soil, sowed the seeds, and tended to the growing plants. The family had always struggled. The land was not generous, and they worked tirelessly for every grain of rice they harvested. But Mayari never complained. She would sing while she worked, her voice carrying through the fields like a bird's song, lifting the spirits of her weary parents. But what Mayari did not know was that her singing had reached ears that she could not see. Deep in the enchanted forest, a serpent spirit, a Naga, listened to her voice day after day. The spirit who had lived alone for countless centuries found solace in her songs. It was said that the Naga had once been a powerful guardian of the valley, but over time, as the world changed, he had become a mere shadow, forgotten by the people who once revered him. The Naga, whose name was Sirok, had watched over the forest since time immemorial. He had seen empires rise and fall, watched the seasons change over centuries, and had lived in solitude for as long as he could remember. But the sound of Mayari's voice stirred something within him, something he had forgotten he was capable of feeling. A longing, a deep sense of loneliness began to grow within the serpent spirit. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Mayari stayed in the fields alone. Her parents had returned home early, but she lingered, humming a soft tune as she gathered the last of the crops. The forest loomed nearby, its shadows growing longer as the light faded. From the depths of the forest, Sirok watched. He had never approached humans before, never dared to cross the boundary between his world and theirs. But something about Mayari compelled him to draw closer. On this day, he decided to act. The serpent spirit, with his ancient magic, transformed. His scales turned to skin, his serpentine eyes softened, and soon a young man stood at the edge of the field. He looked not like the fearsome guardian of the forest, but like an ordinary villager, one who could easily blend in, unnoticed. Mayari turned, startled to see a stranger standing before her. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen, tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of the forest itself. "Do not be afraid," he said gently. "I am a traveler passing through. I heard your song, and I could not help but come closer. Your voice is beautiful." Mayari, though wary, could see kindness in the young man's eyes. She smiled softly, her curiosity piqued. "Thank you," she replied. "I do not often meet strangers here. What brings you to our village?" Sirok spoke of faraway places, of rivers that flowed like silver, and mountains that touched the clouds. He spoke with a passion that enchanted Mayari, and before she knew it, the sun had dipped below the horizon, and stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. From that day on, Sirok would visit Mayari whenever she worked in the fields alone. He helped her with her chores, making the work lighter, and in return, she shared stories of her village, of her dreams, and her hopes for the future. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, a bond began to form between them, a bond that neither fully understood. The harvest that year was bountiful, more so than it had ever been. The crops grew tall and strong, and the once struggling family found themselves with more than enough to eat. The villagers marveled at their fortune, wondering how they had been blessed with such abundance. But Mayari's parents, though grateful, began to grow curious about the mysterious young man who often accompanied their daughter. "Who is he?" her mother asked one night. "Where does he come from? Why does he never visit the village?" Her father frowned, worry etched across his face. They had heard rumors, whispers of spirits and strange beings that roamed the forest. Though they wanted to trust their daughter's judgment, a sense of unease began to take root in their hearts. One evening, as they sat beneath an ancient tree, Mayari turned to Sirok, her eyes filled with questions she had long kept to herself. "Who are you, really?" she asked. "You speak of places I've never heard of, and you appear and vanish as if by magic. Tell me the truth. What are you hiding?" Sirok hesitated. He had always known this moment would come, the moment when he would have to reveal his true nature. But how could he tell her? How could he make her understand that he was not a man, but a spirit, a creature of magic, bound to the forest? "In time you will know," he said finally. "But for now, trust me, I would never harm you, Mayari. I care for you more than words can say." The villagers, meanwhile, had begun to grow suspicious. They had seen the young man at the edge of the fields, always keeping his distance from the village itself. Some spoke of his uncanny beauty, his grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Others muttered darkly about enchantments and curses, and soon fear began to fester. "You must stop seeing him, Mayari. We do not know who he is or what he wants. He could be dangerous." "But he has done nothing but help us," she protested. "He is kind and gentle. He would never hurt me." "There are forces in this world that are beyond our understanding. Spirits that can deceive, that can lure the innocent away. You must be careful, my daughter." Despite her parents' warnings, Mayari could not stay away. She met Sirok one last time, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had to say. "My parents, they want me to stop seeing you. They're afraid. They think you're not what you seem." "They are right," he said, his voice filled with sorrow. "I am not what I seem. I am not of your world, Mayari. I am a spirit bound to this forest, but my feelings for you are real. I have loved you from the moment I heard your voice." Tears filled Mayari's eyes as she looked at him. The truth finally laid bare between them. She had always known, deep down, that he was different, that there was something magical about him. And now, faced with the reality of his nature, her heart ached with a longing she could not express. To prove his words, Sirok stepped back, his form shimmering as he let go of the magic that held him in human shape. Before Mayari's eyes, he transformed, his body lengthening, his skin turning to scales, until the great serpent lay before her. His eyes, however, remained the same, filled with the same deep, longing love. "No matter your form, I love you too." But they both knew that their love was impossible. She was human, and he was a spirit, bound to the forest, unable to leave, while she belonged to the village, to her family, to a world that could never accept him. with a final, sorrowful gaze, Sirok turned and slipped back into the shadows of the forest, his form disappearing among the trees. Mayari watched until he was gone, her heart breaking with each passing moment. She knew that she would never see him again, that their worlds were too different, too distant to ever truly be one. And so, the serpent spirit returned to his forest, and Mayari returned to her village. The fields remained fertile, the crops plentiful, but the light in Mayari's eyes dimmed. She no longer sang as she worked, her voice silenced by the weight of her loss. Yet, on some nights, when the moon was high and the forest was bathed in silver light, Mayari would stand at the edge of the trees, hoping to catch a glimpse of the serpent spirit she had loved. And deep within the forest, Sirok watched over her, his heart forever bound to the girl who had brought him warmth and joy, if only for a fleeting moment. Thus ends the story of the Bride of the Serpent Spirit, a tale of forgotten love and magic, of two souls who found each other, only to be torn apart by the boundaries of their worlds. Some say that love like theirs never truly fades, that it lingers in the air, in the rustle of the leaves, in the whisper of the wind. And perhaps, if you listen closely, you might still hear Mayari's song, carried through the forest by the spirit who will love her for eternity.